This is the Andover One, a beautiful, simple, and great-sounding record player, Bluetooth stereo, and streaming music system. I had been considering buying a turntable for a long time, yet every time I began the research, I was quickly overwhelmed by the complexities and costs of component systems, and so I would lose interest. When I initially came across the Andover, I was intrigued by the design, but the price was way more than I had considered spending. But as I continued to research turntables, amps, and speakers, I kept coming back to this system because it simply checked so many boxes. I decided to make this review because before I pulled the trigger, I really wasn't able to find many independent reviews. The company's website is great, and there's a lot of information there, but the only video reviews I found online were from professional reviewers and audiophile channels who were sent the system in exchange for their review, and I always like to get unbiased opinions before any big purchase. Ultimately, I did decide to give it a shot, as I believe the only way to really evaluate a product is to use it, and the company offers a 60-day in-home trial with free returns. I should mention here that I'm not a professional reviewer. This is my personal system that I bought with my own money, and I'm sharing my thoughts so that hopefully you will be able to make a more informed decision if you're in the market for a record player/stereo system. I'm also not an audiophile, which I'm sure will be apparent throughout this review, but I do appreciate good design, and I always try to opt for quality over quantity. Having said that, this review will be light on technical specs because all that information is available on Andover's website, and I'm more interested in the experience of using and enjoying things, so that's what I'll focus on. Ordering was straightforward. The website functions well, and I had no problem placing my order. One thing to note here is that Andover offers two versions of the Andover One system. There's the Andover One, and there's the slightly down-spec and more affordable Andover One E. Either of these options can be purchased as a standalone all-in-one player or as part of what they call the Premier Music System, which includes the One or One E, a subwoofer, and a cabinet with room for 100 LPs, all beautifully integrated into a single piece of functional furniture that takes up 1.5 square feet of floor space, and yet is capable of filling a huge room and even a whole house with rich sound. I think I received the order within 4 to 5 days, and it arrived in 3 boxes, which were heavier than I expected, especially the subwoofer. If you're bringing this thing up a few flights of stairs like I did, I recommend lifting with a friend. Everything was nicely packaged and arrived unscathed, with the exception of the clear acrylic dust cover, which had a broken corner. To their credit, Andover immediately sent out a replacement. Once everything was unpacked, assembling the components was straightforward, and the finished result is a sturdy, elegant all-in-one design. The turntable and tone arm are both from Project, which seems to make quality components, and everything functions really well here. Of note are the carbon fiber tone arm, which has a premium look, as does the smoked clear acrylic platter. Speaking of premium, the single knob used for navigating feels great, both when being turned to browse menus and when pushing to make selections. I was initially underwhelmed by the screen, which seemed low-res and slightly slow to respond. I think I was expecting some full-color, high-res touchscreen for my $3,200, but I came to realize that wouldn't be in keeping with the simplicity and timeless style on offer here. The screen works fine, does what it needs to do, and won't look dated years from now. One of the most common criticisms about all-in-one record players is something called acoustic feedback, where vibrations from the speakers are transmitted to the turntable and negatively affect playback. Andover's solution to this problem is to isolate the turntable from the rest of the unit, a technology they call IsoGroove. And you can clearly see when you look down onto the turntable how it is totally separate from the cabinet. Even the hinges for the dust cover are mounted to the cabinet outside of this protected area. The whole thing works very well. The sound quality from the turntable alone struck me as adequate, clear and bright with impressive volume given the size of the speakers. But once I connected the subwoofer, well, it felt like watching that scene in The Wizard of Oz where Dorothy emerges from the house and suddenly everything is in Technicolor. I was instantly glad I opted to spend the money on the full system. And speaking of the subwoofer, it has 2 configurations, as a standalone unit with a glass top surface, or as the base of the Andover One Premier system, which is how I opted to set mine up. It was simple to connect and added truly incredible depth and fullness to everything I listened to. Note here how clear the entire frequency spectrum is in this example. You can tune into every note from the bass line, and yet the highs remain clear and crisp. For my money, this is how your music deserves to be enjoyed. Trust me, get the subwoofer. It really does push the listening enjoyment into the next stratosphere. I'll be honest, the overall design of this system is a big part of what you're buying. In short, it's beautiful. I love things that enhance a space, even when they're not being used. And I think the Andover One qualifies. Even in the corner of a room, powered off, it lends an air of sophistication, of mid-century charm, of possibility, especially with a collection of choice vinyl on display in the cabinet. It beckons you to interact with it. All this with virtually no sacrifice in space. The problem with most multi-component systems is the complexity, the placement of everything. The wires and speaker cables, it's clutter, and it's complicated. The Andover One system is the antidote to complexity. The design is simple, timeless, and functional. I love those old console players from the 50s and 60s, the ones that look like cabinets with all the components tucked inside. The Andover reminds me of one of those units, and that's a good thing. I'll say a few words on build quality. I can't remember where I read this, but it was mentioned somewhere that the walnut veneer on the Andover was, quote, Eames quality, end quote. And it is very nice. It has the luxurious warmth that only real wood imparts. Everything here feels very nice to use and interact with. The mesh covering the speakers is high quality, and the metal trim, I'm not sure if it's brushed stainless or aluminum, but it's a nice touch. It's worth noting that the E version of the system does not have this detail, one of the only visual distinctions between the two versions. One final note on the craftsmanship is the included remote. It's made from the same brushed metal and walnut detailing, and it looks and feels very nice. I found its range to be somewhat limited using it from across the room. Seems to require several attempts before commands are recognized by the system, one of the only criticisms I can offer. Maybe it needs new batteries, I'm not sure. I mentioned earlier that I didn't want to talk about technical specs in this review because I don't understand what most of them mean, and because this is my first foray into higher-end stereo equipment. I'll just say that to my ears, this thing sounds really good. It makes listening to vinyl, streaming music, and even connecting other devices immersive and enjoyable. I actually considered placing the unit next to my TV and using it in place of a soundbar, but in the end I opted to place it in the corner of my space in a standalone fashion. This has been a great arrangement for me, but it's nice to have a plethora of connectivity options. Andover even includes a Songbird streamer, which I can't comment on as I haven't set it up. But let me show a few more examples here of the quality of sound the system puts out. Again, a recording of a recording is never ideal, but pay attention to the fullness of the sound and the clarity across frequencies in these examples. Okay, a quick word on the service I've received from Andover. First, it's always nice to call a company's phone number and be connected with a real person. Before I placed my order, I called to ask a few questions and found them to be responsive and helpful. I also sent them an email regarding the broken dust cover I mentioned earlier and received a response the next day letting me know that they were sending out a replacement, which arrived in 2 days. In short, there is a team of people standing behind this product, and they're reachable. Those two facts alone are impressive in this day and age. So who is this system for? If you're in the fortunate position of being able to drop $3,000 on a record player, you have many options. But if you're a hardcore audiophile who wants reference quality sound, this is probably not for you. If you want to hand select and combine every component to build out a custom setup, this is not for you. If you want a system with a vintage 70s vibe or that 90s aesthetic where the individual components are all stacked together, or something hyper-modern, this is probably not for you. But if you're someone like me, someone who's maybe getting into vinyl for the first time or buying their first dedicated sound system, the Andover could be a great option. If you're someone who appreciates mid-century modern design and wants a system that will improve a space even when it's not powered on, the Andover could be a great option. If you enjoy listening to music from a variety of sources and want to fill your home with rich, full-spectrum sound, the Andover could be a great option. At over $3,200 as of the time I'm making this video, it is expensive, no question about it. I read some comments online that claimed one could actually build a better system for less money, and I'm sure that's true. But the intangibles matter. Not every casual music lover wants to research, source, acquire, and set up a component system. The Andover offers enough substance and a serious dose of style, perfect for most people in most listening for enjoyment situations. You're not just buying a record player. You're buying something that will enrich your life every day, something you'll want to interact with and use, something that will enhance whatever space you put it in all of the time, and something that will provide many years of trouble-free service. That's my hope anyway, as I've enjoyed the system immensely so far, not just for playing records, but connected to my phone, whether I'm watching YouTube videos or playing music from my library. It's beautiful and useful. And that's all we can ask of our possessions, that they improve our lives in a way that justifies their cost. I think the Andover One does that. So do I recommend this system? Well, that depends. If you can swallow the price, and if you're looking for a way to enjoy more music more often, I don't think you'll be disappointed. It's a beautiful thing to interact with day to day. If you've read the specs and think it's overpriced for what it is, you've probably missed the point, and that's okay. It won't be for everyone. In summary, the Andover One Premier System is a luxury product. No one needs a $3,000 record player to play their records, just like no one needs a Porsche to get from point A to point B. It's about the experience and the enjoyment of the thing, and the Andover One delivers both in spades. I hope you found this helpful, and thanks so much for watching.